So I'll go through a little bit the details of these solutions within MODSIM on the platform for styling and simulation. And really, as I mentioned, it's about these pillars: about styling, it's about simulation, and it's about visualization. So I'll start first with some of the tools that the stylist, that the designer can use within the 3D experience environment. And these are the CATIA design tools. So natural sketch, you can use human design. So in order to do packaging, I'll show you a little bit of that. Subdivision modeling with Imagine and Shape. It allows you to push and pull and morph those surfaces to realize design ideas. Bringing in their tools in order to be able to bring in data from scans, so working from clay, going to 3D modeling, and then all in that one environment using the live rendering to look at how is the user or the end customer going to perceive this design. And so this here is natural sketch on the platform. And so this is the environment where the designer, the stylist can bring in 2D, going from 2D ideation. The 2D designers provide their ideas, their inspiration, and then the 3D modeler can come in and use these tools, start doing proportion studies, looking at, as I mentioned, human packaging, looking to see ergonomics and how that packaging and sizing will work. And you can see here you have the 2D and the 3D, and then very easily start to sketch these lines of the design, and quickly and easily start to create the 3D model. You can use all sorts of different tools to symmetrize and start to bring that shape to life in 3D. And then using the Imagine and Shape, which is a subdivision modeling tool, you can now really start to create those 3D surfaces and build that fully three-dimensional model that we can then use later on for simulation. But you can see very simple ways to create those subdivision surfaces to be able to push and pull on that model. And Imagine and Shape is particularly good. The surfaces, while not Class A, are very, very close to Class A. So there's a lot less work needed to be done when starting from IMA. In order to do that final surfacing, you're really most of the way there, as opposed to some other tools where it's really just kind of more of a digital clay, I think is referred to. Imagine and Shape really has a very nice handling of that underlying surface. And then these tools again with IMA. To be able to, let's say your starting point isn't a 2D sketch. If you're starting from scan, if you're working with the clay model, you can bring those scans in, and then there's really good tools on the platform in order to go from the scan to the 3D surfacing, real-time sectioning, being able to make sure that your digital representation really reflects what was done within that scan, and then you still have it within that whole segmented surface model. You can visualize it with the live rendering, change the lighting, really explore the design space and how it's going to be viewed, and as I mentioned, how it's going to be perceived. So once we have that 3D model from the design studio, we then can say, all right, well, how's it going to perform? And this could be done by a simulation analyst. It's also, as you will see, easy enough that it could be executed by the designer themselves, or at a designer level. And that's because it's on the 3D Experience platform, you have your 3D model. And within the dashboard, within the product structure, you can see you have your geometry, you have your wheels, and then you have a dashboard-based process that makes it very easy to drag and drop that concept or that geometry to perform a performance study, to execute a simulation, in this case, aerodynamics with power flow. You can choose what kind of simulation you want to do, change a couple of parameters if you need, like the posture or the positioning, and then go and execute that simulation. Have automatic post-processing done that is then tied to that geometry. So within the platform, you have the associativity of that model. And then you can easily view and see what that result looks like. And then once that performance is done, or even before that, the designers can use these visualization tools very early to look at and evaluate, how do these surfaces look? What does excuse me, where do we want to see changes? You can do it, as you can see here. I'm going to pause it here. You have the ability to do it immersively in VR. So whether it's the designer, whether it's the stylist, they can review the geometry, see it from multiple different angles to identify, all right, how are these surfaces going to look when the light is, inside or, outside, sunny, cloudy, whatever environment you want to look at. And then, they might be looking at, okay, here's the rear deck. Here's, excuse me, again, pardon me for my video abilities here, but be able to really visualize what's happening on the back end here. And, and this gives them the opportunity to do what if scenarios. So let's say they're looking at that rear end, and the stylist or the designer, they really want more of an aggressive design for this vehicle. What happens if we want to sharpen that rear end, that rear spoiler? Well, typically that's very costly from an aerodynamic point of view. You're going to add drag, and maybe it's too risky to add or sharpen or make it that more aggressive styling change. Well, with MODSIM, you can do what if scenarios, and you can say, well, let's see what happens if we make a more aggressive spoiler there. And so the designer can go right back into Imagine and Shape, that look at the rear end, identify those control points, and very easily pull up on those control points to make that design change. You can see here they're bringing a more aggressive spoiler into the design to see what happens. From a stylistic point of view, this might be a very appealing thing that the stylist or designer wants to achieve, but they're not sure whether or not it'll be accepted. So here on the platform, they can save this as a revision to their design. And then whether it's to the designer or it's the analyst, they can immediately see that, okay, my simulation is out of date. This is the triggering I referred to before, where they can see that it's not the latest revision. I can update that revision, and again, simply drag and drop into that same dashboard process and rerun the simulation to see what happens.